DOJ Office of School Safety Security Grant. We were awarded funds in the vicinity of $20,000 roughly per building, and then came back and received additional money for DCS. We were told it was per building, but they decided it was per school, which was good for us. So the things that we looked into doing were we added fencing to both CES and CMS CIS. We added two-way radios, which are to be used for safety and security purposes only. And then Chet also brought in some more cameras for each building and the Raptor system. The fencing that we did, we had, if everybody remembers, we didn't have complete fencing along the one side, the School Street side of the middle school. We had about a 25-foot section in there that was wide open. Balls were always rolling out into the street, so we closed that side off. Not completely, but we left walkways, but we closed it off. We don't have balls rolling out in the middle of the street anymore. And then on the Richmond Street side, we shut that off pretty much completely and then added a gate so that we didn't have vehicles pulling in and out onto that blacktop, because we had people who would think, oh, this is a parking lot, and they would come pulling onto our parking lot out back. So keeping that on the safety side, not so much, it's not so much all for security, but safety, keeping the kids away from the street, keeping things from the street away from the kids. The radios, with the radios we can communicate directly with building to building. We can communicate directly to the police department. We can communicate directly to the bus garage. Also, the administrators have radios that can constantly scan all channels so that if there's an emergency somewhere, we can hear that. I'll let Chet talk to you a little bit about his side of it.
Sure. So the Raptor visitor system, if you've come and visited our school or come in, we now have a system where you have to provide, easy for me to say, provide a driver's license or a state-issued ID. We scan that ID to check to see if there are sexual offenses against you, and scan through that, and it'll pop up a picture of you and go through that process. It also creates a badge for everybody to wear saying where they're going to be or why they're in the building and their name. And that is done at all three buildings and the district office. That system, we went through, built a process for staff to follow, so each building and each secretary or receptionist has to go through and follow that process for every guest that comes in. So even if you're coming for a field trip or going into a classroom with a large number of people, we do walk through that process with everybody who comes in. We've also purchased security cameras. We were lacking in security camera coverage on the outside of the buildings. So that was our main focus, was to cover the outside of the buildings and to cover our parking lots. We had no camera coverage in our parking lots. With the cameras that we're adding, we're going to have coverage off of the middle school into the parking lot, off the elementary into that parking lot, and off of the high school into the high school parking lot. We're also covering the whole back alley of the high school is getting covered. There are a number of cameras along there as well. If you've ever walked back there, there are a good number of doors along that stretch. So we're trying to cover as many of those doors as we can. Get a lot of times where people are propping doors open, so it catches a lot of that stuff. So that was our focus as far as the security cameras go. Lisa?
There's been some trainings that the DOJ has required staff to attend. So last year, all staff participated in a 3-hour trauma-sensitive schools training. In April of last year, the members of the administrative team and also the pupil service team attended a school or I'm sorry, members of the administrative team attended a school threat assessment conference up in Black River Falls, and then 13 members of the admin and pupil service staff attended a school violence threat assessment training. That's a one-day training. Now we have until 2020 to get 10% of our staff population trained in the adolescent mental health training. So we're in the process of finishing that training up or moving forward with that training. And that's a 2-day training that is offered throughout the state. So those are kind of the trainings that the DOJ has required us that we are either have fulfilled or are continuing to work to fulfill within their time frame.
So that would be round one. Round two. Round two, we came together as a group, administrative group, and talked about what was the most important thing we wanted to go for. The one thing that stuck out to all of us was that we didn't have a secured entrance at the elementary school. So we brought in multiple vendors, put out a request for bids to multiple vendors, had a great turnout. C.G. Schmidt was ultimately the company that we chose. The budget for the project was not to exceed $75,000 because that was the money that we got for the grant. C.G. Schmidt came in and provided us a second secured control access point inside of a vestibule off of, it would be door 3 at the elementary school. So it used to be that you just swiped your badge and that door would open up, and then there was another set of doors that you could just walk through. Well, now we can have the outside doors program to be open for a specific period of time in the morning when it's time for all the kids to come in, and that interior door can be programmed also, but once the school day starts, the interior door will be locked. And we took what was once the maintenance room and turned that into our receptionist area with a window kind of like you would see at a bank. C.G. Schmidt came in right away as soon as school got out and started the project and moved along pretty quickly. We ran into a few bumps in the road with our control access vendor, but they kept on it and got the job done, and now we have a secured entrance at the elementary school, which came in under budget. So, that would be round 2. Any questions from anybody?
Mike or Julie?
I mean, just at the secured entrance at the elementary looks very nice. Any other projects down the road that we have to do, or are we good shape?
As of right now, that's all the projects that we have through the DOJ project, or the DOJ grant. With this coming in under budget, the leftover money can be used for other safety and security things. We haven't sat down as a team yet to identify what we will do with that, but I would say right now the need is probably going to be in paying for some of these additional mental health trainings that we have coming up.
We do have a timeline for that, so we have to have anything that is financially funded, we have to have that done by August, or not August, there's a deadline for that. So we have to have that expended in fairly short order. The trainings, we have until August of 2020 to get those completed, but anything that is financial money and is going to be funded, we have to have those completed in pretty short order.
Anything down here? Bill?
At CES, what becomes of that front door that is the buzz-through door?
That will no longer be the main entrance.
Is that buzzer going to be disconnected?
We haven't discussed that yet, but we will not be allowing people in there. They're going to have to come through the...
You're just going to tell them to go
Yep,
around
if they
buzz
come to
at
that door
one?
and buzz in, it'll be, you need to go to the secured entrance.
Gotcha.
I will say that we even, when Columbus Police Department shows up, they even have to go through our Raptor system. Unless we call them for a specific reason. They stop in for a meeting, the officers go through the Raptor system.
So does the board.
Yes. So to help with the communication of the new secured entrance, we've created a video, and Beth is on the video, and we've filmed it, so we'll help the parents and everybody understand that we have a new entrance, and here's how we're gonna work that and what it's gonna look like, so that everybody will understand how they can use the new secured entrance.
Is it on the website?
I don't know if it's there yet, but we're working on it and getting it up so that they'll have it.
So two things, Raptor system, is that an annual? So if you were in the database last year as a parent, and now we hit September 1st, school starts again, are we starting over with that? Is there a cycle or still under
I don't know if
review?
we've talked about,
So if somebody comes in and says, I've been here before, and your name is in the Raptor system, our secretaries are still running that name. It's not
Yeah.
like they just look at you and say, oh yeah, I remember you.
Yeah.
They still run
It-
the name.
it still has to go through and do the database check.
Sure.
So it'll still do that.
Oh, okay.
But we're not having them rescan, but we can talk about that.
So
if
it's a
we want them to
background
rescan.
check every time you
Correct.
enter.
Every time.
It's
Every
not-
time.
It's not
Not
a
just-
check it now and then you're
Correct.
good for a period of time.
No,
It's scanning
no,
you
it's
every time before.
every time you walk through the door, it does this check.
Got it. Got it.
Yep. Yep.
And then the training we've done, that's been offered as part of in-services, right? Either part of our scheduled days, or were there opportunities outside of our in-services?
Yes,
Just
so
a
the.
refresher, I know we've talked about that before, but I can't remember all the details.
The trauma sensitive school training was done on our February in-service day. The other trainings have been outside of our scheduled in-service times, and those are for more selected groups of people. And they've gone on either days that we either haven't had school in the summer trainings, or else during the school year.
The Tuesday that we couldn't use as a make-up snow day.
Yes,
February.
Yes.
yes.
Yes, that Tuesday
That
one
was
that
the
was
Tuesday
set.
we needed for
Now I remember.
the
Okay.
required training.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Can't remember them all. We try. Okay, any other questions? It's always great when we come in under budget. That's fantastic to hear, because we know that we have old buildings and sometimes you run into the unexpecteds. So, always an exciting thing.
All right.
So, great,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Troy, you may depart. Feel better. Okay, moving on to our summer food service updates with Laura.
Yep, we have Laura Austin here, who is our food service director, and Laura is going to share with us our summer feeding report with the program that we had for the summer. She's going to share some numbers. You had in your board packet a table that Laura put together for us, comparing some numbers from last year and this year. And Laura will talk just a little bit about our program, and the board also would like, when we weren't feeding, if you had information on where the kids were able to go for the program when we weren't feeding kids this summer.
Okay,
Okay?
so what I did is I put some numbers together and I compared last summer to this summer. Last summer, we served 8,420 meals. So that was the summer of 18. The summer of 19, we served 9,309 meals. What we did this summer is we got huge banners. We put them on the fences at the schools. The first week of the program, we went out to parks and we told the kids what was going on. We had little flyers we handed out. We put information at the library. We put information out at the food banks. We really just wanted to get the information out that there were free meals available. The free meals went through August 2nd. So from August 2nd until school started, and I understand, I think it ended about a week ago, one of the churches had picked it up. I don't think it was very well publicized, but our program ended on the 2nd. So that's something to look at maybe for next year and how to pass that information along for those families that really needed it. But our feeding coincided with our summer school program. With the 11% increase, it just shows what a great need there is in our community for these meals. And so I was really, the food service team did an amazing job this summer. Getting the kids in, getting them fed, and a lot of really positive feedback.
Awesome.
So, one of the things we wanted everybody to realize, it's anyone 18 and under, they don't have to live in Columbus. They can live in River Falls, they can live in Beaver Dam. Their cousins are visiting, they can all come in. Okay?
So breakfast numbers were way
Way up.
up.
Well,
And is that just our summer school enrollment? Is that what you served? Any speculation on why that? Because that's crazy. That's 1,100 breakfasts
What we
or
served.
1,050. That's a
Yeah.
huge
Can you talk-
increase over.
Talk a little bit about
whatever,
the
60
difference in
days.
what we served, Laura.
Well, last year they served a lot of cold cereal, and it came in a packet, and it was almost like a school MRE. Okay, that's the best way to describe it. And so we served real warm food every day, and we pretty much followed the same menu pattern that we followed during the school year. They had juice, they had fruit, they had milk, and then they had their entree. And I think we've been very successful with that through the school year, and now I think it worked this summer as well.
Any feel for, and this is just, I should have sent this question earlier, I apologize, and it's okay if you don't have an answer, but do we have any idea how these numbers relate to our summer school enrollment number of students? Do we have a high percentage of our summer school students who participated in the summer food program, or any idea what that looks like over previous, or was it consistent through that, whatever, 60 days we had, 45 days-ish?
This isn't like data that we calculated from years past. However, I can speak upon my own child. She didn't take cold lunch once this summer, and that's something to be said. So the food that they're serving over the summer lunches were definitely something that the kids wanted to eat, and I saw less. I just don't have any numbers to prove that.
That's fine. No, just curious more than anything, because this is still through the federal grant, right?
This
We're
is,
on year 4 maybe of that, 5 maybe of
and
that.
I want to say, and I don't have this number in front of me either, but we have at least 2 or 3 more years before we have to make sure we hit certain criteria
Oh, going forward.
going forward.
Oh.
So we have a couple more years ahead of us,
Okay,
because it's all based on census tract.
okay.
And that's why we can't put a program at the high school, because we only hit the census tract for the elementary and the middle school.
Gotcha.
Because it would be really nice to do it at the high school and get those athletes for breakfast or for lunch, and we are not able to do that at this time. I tried this summer.
So.
We didn't have the free and reduced numbers. at the
With
high school.
food, yeah, I'm following that.
But it's all based on census tract.
So, okay, I'm throwing this out, just throwing it out there. With us closing campus at the high school,
Mm-hmm.
do we anticipate that status then to change? Do we have any idea what that might look like?
Census tract.
Or just
Okay,
wait
it's
to see what that is?
it's not our percent of free and reduced students.
Right.
It's totally census tract. So you're gonna have to wait till the 2020 census,
Yes.
and then for them to take that data to see
Oh,
if we
it's
will
not
be
last
eligible.
year's school census,
No.
it's the population
It's the
census.
population.
Oh, I got it now, sorry, I was
No, that's
providing
okay.
the wrong definition to that. I got it, okay,
So,
wow.
and the ladies that
that'll
did the
be
program
interesting.
this summer did an amazing job. I am happy to report, you all know I inherited freezers full of food, and we were able now, we're starting this year fresh. There's no more turkey left. So,
Okay, any other questions for Laura? No? Okay.
All right,
Thank you for
thank
your
you.
efforts. Thank you
Thank
to
you,
your
Laura.
staff.
Thank you.
Much appreciated. Those are amazing numbers. Okay, moving forward to number 3, our 2.5 fine arts indicator. Now, this is just a reminder for you guys. After receiving the fine arts monitoring report last time, we had some questions about in the data that we were collecting and making sure that we had a good understanding and good representation for students. So in your packet is the information from the governance committee that was ultimately approved by the board. And then this is the adjustment coming back for an indicator, a revised indicator. And we will have to approve this before it can be implemented into the next monitoring report if we feel it meets our needs.
Yep, so we have Becky Schmidt here tonight who will look at what the E2 Fine Arts indicator was. And so we're looking at specifically indicator number 5 and indicator number 6, I believe, in E2. And also then, I believe we also have English Language Arts 3 and 4. And so Becky's going to look at indicator 3 and 4. And so when we're looking at these, she's going to just review very quickly the suggested, what the current is, and she's going to do the suggested, how we'd like to change it, and then the rationale for those, okay? Again, Becky's got a little bout of bronchitis, and so if she starts coughing in the middle and cannot speak, then I will do my best to fill in for her. So we're going to have her just do a really brief summary. You all have the information in front of you, so I'm going to ask her to do brief, and then if you have questions, we'll go from there, okay?
Yep. So with Fine Arts 5 and 6, with what I did was I presented the current. So current 5, the number of music students earning a 1 or higher at solo and ensemble for all students in grades 7 through 12 will remain steady or increase. When we presented the data for this, we showed it as number of students that earned a 1 or higher on solos and a number of ensemble entries that earned a 1 or higher. In the suggested revision, it's just a minor, actually a little tweak of clarification where you'll see number of music students earning a 1 or higher at solo and ensemble, and then in parentheses kind of defining it as solo and or ensemble entries. For all students in grades 7 through 12 will remain steady or increase. The indicator itself has language that is going to have us report on number of students earning a 1 or higher. And kind of looking at the rationale behind this, and almost more importantly, I gave you just a sample of what evidence could look like with this, just to further explain, is that I'm hoping what the board is looking for is really that, knowing that participation numbers can go up or down, how many students in our program are actually earning at that high level of success. When we reported out on ensembles, the tricky part to that is you didn't know if that ensemble had 3 students or 30 students in it. Where with this proposal, what you would get would be the number of students total, whether or not they participated in a solo, an ensemble, or both, but just that number of students total who had achieved a 1 or higher in that participation. And so indicator 6 is a similar version. If you remember our indicators, 1 deals with overall student body, and then indicator 6 would deal with students who are considered part of different subgroups in that participation. But the rationale behind the 2 of them is the same. Do you want to talk about fine arts before we move on to English? Okay.
Questions about that? Does it help, Keith, this was your question, I think, last meeting, or the one before in another situation where we were talking about trying to gauge number of students in something. So this is your first take on that? Does this follow where you were going?
I think part of when I brought it up too was if there was like a declining population, keeping it relative instead of just count increase. But I think I was at the meeting that was specific to solo and ensemble, and that was more of how many in the ensemble.
Any other questions? Does it seem reasonable for what we were trying to better get a grasp of? Yes. Julie, go ahead.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, based on our conversation in governance committee when we brought this forward, I think the rationale fits with what we were trying to clarify, was really gauging participation, and that participation is increasing. So I think this is a reasonable way to do that.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, so that will be an action item for our next meeting, 2.5 and 2.6 indicators. Okay, go ahead with the next one.
Okay, and then while we were working on revision with E2, I also wanted to bring back for the board's consideration revision to the English language arts indicators 3 and 4. Literacy indicator 3 reads the district average scores in reading and writing from the ACT Aspire for grades 9 and 10 will exceed the state percentage of students who meet or exceed the benchmark readiness level in reading and writing for all students. For suggested, I would like the board to consider changing the language from reading and writing to just simply English language, average scores in English language arts from ACT Aspire will meet or will exceed the state percentage of students who meet or exceed the benchmark readiness level. I still have reading or writing for each student. But the reason that looking at the average scores in English language arts, we talked about it when we did this report last time. The state changed the way that ACT Aspire is reported out. They don't, while they could still pull a separate reading score, the state does not give us writing scores as a collective whole for the school or give us any state average of student performance on writing. Instead, they've moved to providing an English language arts score, which is a combination of reading, writing, and English exams from ACT Aspire. And we had talked about that earlier at a board meeting. The rationale largely lies behind the fact that they didn't feel that a standalone writing, like that it was definitely part of an overall proficiency for English language arts, but didn't want districts to get too hung up on just a single writing sample from a student. English language arts is also the way that the district is reported on when it comes to our state report card. So that's the same data that we would see when that measurement comes out as well. So both 3 and 4 just simply ask for a change allowing that we report the English language arts score for both our Columbus students and how the state performance is, because that's the data that we have available to us.
Questions on ELA? Julie, go ahead.
So just to clarify, it won't change the data that we're using at all. It's just clarifying the language so that it matches. Is that right?
Correct. Right. Last year, what I did show you, I showed you reading and I showed you English language arts because we were unable to show writing, even though the indicator said writing.
Okay. Anybody else? I remember the conversation about that. It would be helpful when we get that report we'll approve this, but to put a reminder in the comments or
Absolutely.
so we know when we need to come back to that, where that change was and why. So
For
I'll
both
try
fine
that.
arts and for ELA?
Fine arts, I'm not worried about. ELA, because it's using that test data.
Okay.
The availability of that test data differently. So just so we put a note there,
Absolutely.
that would be fantastic. Okay.
Sounds
Any
good.
other questions for Becky? I think those were the 2 on here, right? That's it. Okay. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to the nope, sorry, not yet. You don't get to go yet. All right, I was out of ink. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Board retreat report. The board was in one of our working retreats last week, Monday, and we had a number of things that came out of that. So I will just draw your attention to a couple things that are in your packet. You have the 2 summary documents, which are the information that we reviewed last week. Just the summary of the policy and then our survey responses. You also have the, what is the cover sheet? And Tammy and I have kind of been working on figuring out a process to get away from maybe using Form Stack, because I don't know anything about FormStack, but apparently it's not the most user-friendly thing in the world. But there's some other platforms by which we can do our surveys, and we've talked about there being some adjustments in that. And so we're looking at revising this cover sheet. Right now, it's a different cover sheet for every one of those reports that we do. And a lot of times our conclusions apply to multiple policies. We do a lot of, as I already stated, that type of thing. And some of us really don't like doing separate motions for each of those reports. So this is kind of a draft to consolidate and make that easier. We've also talked about what that survey format is going to look like in the future in a new platform, where the board response question comes as far as those individual bullet points or items within the policy. So we're working on that. It was not ready to be board action this evening. So food for thought on what you're seeing there. But any other comments, questions, responses to those documents? Because like I said, they're drafts. Anything else about our conversation and the self-monitoring reports? Anybody wants to share? I think we beat them up pretty
We
good.
just went over them thoroughly.
We did.
I'm happy to say that I don't ever have to compile them again. It's a great way to spend your Sunday afternoon. All right. So we'll move on to the board development opportunity. We've had a chance to talk about that proposal, and a copy of it is in there, looking at the costs for wisdom sharing this year. And so opening it up, now that we've had a chance to kind of ponder that, think about what that might look like, I did put it down as an action item. It would come out of our cost of governance budget. But I wanted to give you guys the opportunity to discuss it again if there were questions, comments, concerns about this. Doesn't necessarily need to be a commitment to an annual rotation, but I think it's good to know what that might look like. So our action item later would be approving Keith and Annette to attend. So, questions about the opportunity? Any reconsiderations, concerns that came up?
None of the above, just a comment. I continue to think it's a good idea for us to really continue to try and stay on top of that board development, make sure we're doing the job we're supposed to be doing it and doing it in a way that's productive and beneficial to our students. So I think it's a good opportunity that we should participate in.
Anybody else? All right. Revision to district policy is also in your packet. Anybody want to talk about that? Somebody can, because I took the first two.
All right. So the conversation we had the other night in retreat was aligning district policy as far as timing for public commentary to align with other public groups and other school districts. And so we spent a lot of time talking about what that looks like, and ultimately leading towards and made a recommendation that we decrease that time so that more individuals can have the opportunity to be involved in public commentary. That was kind of my take from that conversation. That's kind of how I felt it went. Is that what everybody else thought?
Anybody else?
Sure.
Kelly?
No, I think that both when I was with the City of Columbus and on the MATC board, 3 minutes is a pretty standard amount of time for public comment. So I think it's appropriate that it's still being put prior to any action. so that if there is something germane to an action item, that it's prior. And it would allow almost double the number of people to weigh in on that issue.
And I did go ahead in the agenda for this evening, and we did the rearranging and did the superintendent's report and then public conversation there, if necessary, followed by our various action agendas. So it was a good break. We shuffled everything around to make it a good fit there. Okay. Any other reflections on that? So even though it is a district policy, it relates to board meetings. So it will be an action item for us on the next agenda. So that Annette can make that change. All right. And then we also had a conversation about recording and broadcasting of board meetings. Anybody want to do a recap of that?
Sure, I would like to do that. So we had some conversation about recording and live Facebook feed, because there's been some concerns brought up, a couple of opportunities or concerns. One was, we work really hard for our district website to be ADA compliant, Americans with Disabilities Act compliant. And there's some conversation about whether or not Facebook Live actually was ADA compliant because of the inability to close caption. So that's something that we need to look into. And the other conversation and concern that we spent some time on was the fact that Facebook Live is indeed that very live in the moment right now. We have no ability to, if there's a student identifier that's released that shouldn't be, or some other, gosh forbid, Cindy decides to let out a string of expletives, we have no opportunity to censor that. So those were part of the conversations, and so I
don't know if that qualifies for redacting.
No?
Might not. Inappropriate, but.
I'd like to have a button, it'd be fun. So the conversation we actually were having is we were leaning towards temporarily suspending our Facebook Live until we can figure out if that's the best platform and ADA compliant platform for us to use for that opportunity. So that was kind of what I took from that discussion.
Anybody else want to weigh in on that? The other topic that came up is recognizing the changing demographics of our students and our community. And that is that we reached that threshold of, I don't remember what the percent of students is, but that we needed to hire a bilingual teacher. So we also had conversation about where is the point that, we have certain things that are available and translated for our families. What does this look like in our board meeting broadcasts? So putting that all together, it is something that we just need to do a review of. Things are changing, and we needed to do a little bit more research with Chet's help and Annette's help to look at what our options are. And I think the conclusion of the board was that this will be the last one that we Facebook live stream. Our cable broadcast will continue, but we'll actively look at what our options are going forward. Questions? And you and I can talk about some of those things, timeline, what that might look like for Chet, because you and I have not discussed that at all yet. So we'll put that on our discussion list for next week, after kids are back in school and things aren't crazy in district office. Okay, any other reflections on the board retreat?
I think a couple
Yeah, go ahead,
things. One thing would be in regard to, we are pursuing some type of survey to the community in probably later fall. And we talked about linkages and start to go about that, communicating with groups in Columbus area that we would like to talk to. And secondly, we also had a discussion in terms of we're going to have a retreat with the WASB representatives. And I think two of our topics at least would be calendar planning and meetings in terms of how we go about them in that discussion.
Yep.
I'm sure there'll be other topics, and we said we were going to come back to that at our next, actually tonight maybe,
Yep.
later on tonight.
Yep. Yeah, we're actually going to do that in our board debriefing, because I have outlined some preliminary topics for WASB and their preparations for that. And I'll mention it now, but we can come back to it when Annette does her update on facilities. But the communication has gone out. It went out in the wee hours of this morning to our linkage groups to start scheduling those for September. So I have a handy dandy calendar to start assigning those. It's a fun experience, I do want to say. And Tammy is being copied on some of those communications so that she gets up to speed on what that looks like as well. So yeah, we'll do that in our forward planning at the end of the meeting. So yep, thanks. Appreciate it, Mike. Any other reflections from our retreat? Keith, I'm really trying not to have so many.
Are you?
I'm really trying. But sorry, we got September and October. I wish if I can come up with a way to, consolidate those, I'll let you know. We'll work on it. All right, moving on to the superintendent's report.
Okay. So first thing to talk about is we have set a date for the auction of the real estate and personal property at, of course, Mike, 328 South Dickinson Boulevard. The auction will be on October 19th. We don't have a time yet, but the date will be Saturday, October 19th. As a reminder, the late Alice Schmidt left to the school district her real estate, her home and the real estate there, and she also left all of her personal belongings to the Columbus School District Endowment. And so together on that date, we are going to be celebrating Alice Schmidt and having an auction, and her personal property, those proceeds are going to be going to the endowment for the school district, and the district has also determined that the proceeds from the home and the real estate will also then, once that is sold, will also be going to the endowment. So the endowment that the committee has determined is going to be, a fund is going to be created in the name of Alice Schmidt, and all of those proceeds are going to be set up, and grants can be applied for by any staff member in the district for their own professional development purposes. That is what the committee has decided. So we are really honored, and we think this is something Alice would determine is just the best. So that is what we are going to move forward, and we hope that the entire day is going to be just a celebration of Alice's life. The company Wilkinson Auction Services is going to be moving forward with the advertising and the marketing of all of the items, including the house and the real estate and certain items inside the house as well. And so you'll be seeing lots of marketing coming soon for that. A facilities update. So our committee moved forward and it recommended to the school board that we do a survey of some sort, and the board said, yes, let's do that. So School Perceptions is the company that is working with Bray, and the administration is working currently with those, both Bray and school perceptions, to come up with the concept for our survey. We have had 2 meetings in regards to that. Bray is now working on specifics in the survey regarding our facility and process and all of that, and we will be meeting again on Friday. Friday seems to be kind of the date. We are still really working on having it go to households within the very, I'm going to say like 2nd week, 3rd week of September. That's still our goal. So as soon as we know more, we will let you know, but look for your mailboxes. It's coming to all households within the district coming soon. So stay tuned. We'll send you more information as we know more. It's going to be exciting.
Can we do questions on those 2 items first?
Oh, sure. Questions. Sorry, I'm
No,
just
you're-
buzzing through, but
You're okay.
questions.
I just want to say that I think we're all very happy with the recommendation from the endowment and Annette on how to manage what Alice has left the district. And, you know, the big thing is that is just a lasting gift and continues to keep it giving back for the good of our students. Those who knew Alice, that's what she wanted. And I think this is a great plan to do that. We surely appreciate her generosity in that. So before we all start crying, we're going to move on. So like Mike mentioned, facilities update, and those linkage emails have gone out. And so if anybody on the board has, you guys have seen the list, and I'll share it with you all again, of who we're trying to schedule with our ongoing list. But if you have any new groups, now is the time to reach out to them, but anybody in the community as well who hasn't been on our list of people to stop by and give a quick update to. This one's going to be really short. I think about 10 minutes, nothing fancy, no big PowerPoint, it's just a quick update. But now would be the time to reach out to us. We're trying to make those meetings by the 18th of September. But of course that crams a lot in a short amount of time. But I've had a couple groups also respond today saying that they don't have a meeting in that time frame, or they don't have room on their agenda for us, but are happy to share an email update. So I'll be working on that to be prepared sometime next week, more than likely. Probably before Friday. I need to get that done before my schedule changes. But happy to accommodate there and appreciate anybody who's willing to share that as well. So our updates are about the survey. Okay, go ahead.
Anybody else have questions?
Yeah, go ahead, Keith.
Is the endowment, so it's gonna get managed separately from the other one?
Yes.
So the funds are kept separate, and is it one, I guess I'm making an assumption and don't want to, principal never gets touched, it's just funds off of the
Correct.
investment?
Correct.
Okay,
Yep.
good, thanks.
Mhm. Any other questions?
Well, I'll be out of town, so I won't be able to bid you up on anything that you're bidding on. But it's not really a question.
You
so
always try hard,
I'm
I know.
sorry.
Anybody else?
Whenever I see a Nats number,
He does.
mine's a little shorter though, I'm pretty sure. It's harder for the auctioneers. Yeah, okay.
All right.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's all right. All right. Next, we have high school principal Tom Fisher and assistant principal and athletic director, activities director Corey Denk here, and they're going to present for us basically process and a little bit of the highlights from the advisor and coach handbooks for the 1920 school year.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Corey and I will be presenting tonight. Terry's name is up there too, but Terry is soaking wet right now at the JV football game, or at least wrapping it up. So she's done her part. But she played a very big role in this. She was an important part of this process, and that just needs to be recognized. So she's not here tonight because she's working overtime over, or doing her job over at the high school, but she played a big part in this development of the handbooks for advisors and coaches. This process started last year. It was identified that the district should have coaches and advisors handbooks, and that was basically tasked with Corey and Terry, and they began working on that last year. They looked at other districts' advisors and coaches handbooks, and they began piecing together one for Columbus. And they created 2 separate handbooks, a coach's handbook and an advisor's handbook, with resources in there for those positions. The last month or so, we decided to work collaboratively on that, taking the pressure off simply Corey and Terry, and as a collaborative group, the administrators, district office staff, high school administrative assistant. A lot of people started working on this together, and with that, over the last month, we believe we've really produced a handbook for coaches and advisors, and we combined them. So there's just one. There's a great deal of information in there, and that group met, discussed revisions, discussed content, and worked really hard to put this together for our advisors, and we presented information to advisors and coaches on the 20th, and we have this for you to see tonight and hear about tonight. The objective of what we're trying to do is have a handbook that has resources and guidance and information that would help any advisor or any coach do their job successfully. So we believe we've created that. Again, it was a lot of hard work from a lot of people, and Corey's going to take us through the content of the handbook.
You looked a little befuddled when he was talking, so I'm. No, that's okay.
Why don't you go ahead? The revised handbook didn't make it to the packet, so we have access to the one that was there last meeting. So we're trying to determine if the revisions are in that one, or if there's some revisions since the one we saw in the last one. So
Are we talking about the co-curricular activities for the students?
the coaches.
Okay. This was the one given the district office for this board meeting. Right, that's the student one.
It's okay, go ahead, and Annette and I will.
Okay.
figure- It's okay. It's okay. This is new superintendent secretary, board president with a busy schedule,
Okay.
and in service for staff. So we didn't get done our double check on Friday like we usually do of
Okay.
every item with every document. So we have it's okay. You're
Okay.
good, you're good. Go ahead.
Okay.
We got it.
You good? Okay. So really, this is just a guide for coaches and advisors. And in the handbook, it's got a philosophy. What is the philosophy behind this handbook, and why are we doing it? And then it's got expectations. So it's got job description and responsibilities for coaches and advisors, head coaches and advisors. But it also has expectations of what needs to be communicated to parents and to students. So what information do they need to know so that their children can be successful when it comes to their athletics or to their clubs? It also has lots and lots of policies and procedures in it. And so it's got everywhere from fundraising to cash handling to travel releases to, what else does it, class community. So that's the fundraising footprint we're using. And it just has how to track your expenses. It's just got everything you can possibly imagine for policies and procedures, and then the policies are also linked so that the coaches and advisors can go right to those policies and read them themselves. It talks about how do you select students for your program, like if they're going to be on varsity versus JV, how do you select students? And it talks about how do you select a captain, and what is that role of the captain? You know, if a student is going to be nominated captain, what is their responsibility, and how do you share that information with that captain of the team? A really important thing that it has in there is the evaluation of the program, something that hasn't been done in the past, but how do the coaches and advisors evaluate their program? So they have goals that they need to work on. Is it, you know, for 7th grade girls basketball, it's going to be very different than varsity basketball at the high school. So what do you want them to learn in 7th grade, and how do you evaluate that happened? And then the same for moving forward as it goes to high school varsity level. It also then has evaluation of the coaches. It's got how do you propose a new course proposal? If you want to do a new co-curricular, what does that look like? How do you propose it? What expectations do we have? What's the financial responsibility? How many kids do you expect to have? So that's another link that's in the handbook. It's got emergency procedures for injuries and emergency procedures if a student gets injured on the site or if you're with them. And then Terry and I got our crafting on, and we made a beautiful flip chart. Isn't that, thank you. We spent a lot of time on this. So it's got, it's our flip chart for a coaches and advisors crisis plan. So we have them in the schools for staff members. But what happens if if it's just the coach and the students? What happens then if it's a practice time? What do they need to do? What happens if it's during a game time? What happens if there's a bomb threat and there's just a coach there? What needs to happen? So they can go to their trusty flip chart and they can go there and it's right there. So these have been edited so that it kind of takes after what our crisis plan says, but then it kind of adapted for the coaches and advisors. It's a really large document with lots of information on it, but it's also linked in so that all coaches and advisors have access to it on their Google Drive. Now, let's say that their coach, a coach isn't in the schools, then that we are having separate meetings with those coaches so that they can understand the handbook and expectations as well. And CPR and first aid is required for all of our coaches and advisors so that they know how to help students if they're injured. Did you guys get the right document now? Okay.
We're good. So
now you guys need to peruse that and you can come back and.
So just so we're all on the same page. In your packet, we have the revisions to the student co-curricular handbook, which was updated for the trimester language. So you have a snapshot of that page. The link was just emailed to you with the updated advisor handbook. It is very similar, but there are some minor revisions to the one that was sent to us for the last meeting, but we actually removed that from the agenda. So I apologize that Annette and I were trying to figure that out. I didn't realize that hadn't made it there, and she grabbed her memo, and I went, yeah, there's a link in the memo, and there wasn't.
No
so
worries.
We have it now. We're good. All right. Questions, comments about the advisor handbook? Don't make me go first.
So just to clarify, this is a coach and advisor handbook. How is this, so remind me, are we going to expose parents to this so that they understand their role in the relationship also?
Nope, this is just for the coaches and advisors so that they can see and then they know their expectations. The parents have a different handbook, which is the student-parent handbook.
The student one, yep. Which both the high school and the middle school have a parent meeting about those expectations of the co-curricular participant, as well as things like chain of command and required medical paperwork and what have you.
I think I was looking at the wrong handbook while we were talking. I got it now.
You got confused, it's okay.
Never mind, my question is null and void.
Okay.
All right, any other questions about Have you had your meeting as a non-staff coach?
I have
What
not
did
had
they
my
call
meeting.
you?
When is my meeting?
Don't look at me.
My understanding is that Terry Schumacher was either reaching out or reached out to coaches that aren't on staff to set up a meeting.
We'll contact
If you
Terry.
haven't, then Terry needs to contact you.
We'll contact
It
Terry.
hasn't been approved yet, Bill, so
I
you
know.
can't
Yeah.
sign off on it.
My other question was there any coaches or advisors involved with this group putting these two handbooks together?
For the most part, when we went through, I don't know what happened in the last year.
They were, they were not part of it. They were looked at. Terry and I did it together, and then we had some people look at it, but they did not give back any feedback.
But they weren't involved in the development?
No,
then?
they were not.
Okay.
We had coaches and advisors involved in the student piece. And with this one, it was mainly administrative team and district office staff.
Thinking back, am I on? Yes. Thinking back again to that non-pupil discrimination report and some of the areas that were identified there, as hard as it was to swallow, about gaps that we had in training of coaches. I think this addresses a lot of those areas. I have to go back and look at the details, but some of the key ones that I remember, which, obviously focus around unintentional discrimination of participants, and a lot of that just being an awareness of what that means, really seem to be addressed in here and in what those expectations are. So I appreciate the work that has gone into this, very much so.
Well, we also have gotten questions about, people who are not school employees asking, what are my responsibilities as a coach? And this is an easy document that we can give them so that they know, because otherwise they come in and they don't know what their responsibilities are, and there wasn't anything that has ever been provided for them. So this is a really great, handbook for them, but then maybe it'll allow more questions if they still have questions that we can answer, and it's an easy place to go get them.
This applies to all paid staff?
No, and voluntary.
As volunteer?
Yep, all.
Everybody?
Yep, everybody.
If you're involved in that,
If you are responsible for our students, you, as a coach or an
Activity in
advisor,
that.
this is,
awesome. Mike, you had a question or comment?
No, I just gonna say, it sounds and looks to me like a lot of hard work by you, Corey and Terry, both. And I would say, listening and seeing a little bit, a very complete document.
looks like you got some late night reading to do.
And I
It'll be
will,
good.
because I volunteer a little bit.
Yeah, you'll be,
Minor revisions to what we saw last time, so we're good. We're good. Great. Anything else? All right, so moving on to, thank you very much. Moving on to staff breakfast, back to school.
Yep.
And then you want to do HR right away?
So, as a reminder for the board, we do have tomorrow our staff, all staff in service, and we start with a breakfast tomorrow. Our food service staff, as you heard Laura talk about earlier, will be serving a hot breakfast for all of our staff to welcome them all back. That's at 7:45. We start serving. So if you are going to be there as a board to help serve, just a little bit of a reminder, no open-toed shoes in the kitchen.
I will never live that down. I will have plastic booties as well.
And you will be asked to wear hairnets once again. So we will be making sure that we follow all the safety and sanitary requirements in the kitchen. Just so that we, as a board, the board serves breakfast so that our food service staff can also eat with the rest of the staff. It's just a welcome back to everybody. For our I gotta find my agenda for tomorrow. So a little bit of the in-service for tomorrow. We do have a welcome back breakfast, as I said, and then there's a welcome by me and a brief word of welcome by Cindy. We'll introduce our new staff. Actually, we'll have them introduce themselves. And then we have an interactive experience tomorrow for our staff. So instead of a sit and get where we kind of go through our department, here are some things that we want you to know at the start of the year, we're going to start it off, and we have a staff member in the audience tonight, so I'm not going to ruin it for her. But we have an interactive experience that's
You're
going to
live
be
streaming too, so-
Yes, interactive experience that's going to be what we think is promises to be fun for them all. So, and then we do have just some information that we need all staff to know about in our business office and payroll procedures. Lisa is going to talk a little bit about homelessness in our students and how we can recognize homelessness in our students. We are going to do some training. Safety and security, Officer Ward from the Columbus Police Department is going to be there, and I think it's Sergeant, but I don't remember, Officer, I'm not even going to, from the Columbia County Sheriff's Department is going to be there. I'm not even going to pretend to say that last name. And that's all in the morning on some run, hide, fight. And then in the afternoon, the buildings are going to do some in-service with their staff as well. So that is tomorrow. And then we have work days for the staff in the rest of the week. And then next Tuesday, we welcome the kiddos back into the buildings. And so we are very excited about that.
So you want me to shave my 37-slide PowerPoint down to something more reasonable so you can move on to your interactive activity? 37.
Yes, please. Just teasing. I know she doesn't have that. So, okay, so that's tomorrow. Just as a reminder as well, we do have open house in our district buildings on Wednesday from 4 to 6 p.m., and that is in all of our district buildings, including our transition house and our transition program. If you haven't been to our transition house in a while, we invite you there as well, 4 to 6 p.m. Please come and see, because we've done some work in our transition house with the transition program, and I think you'll be pleasantly pleased to see the work that has been done in that house as well. So we're excited about all of that, and please come in, meet the teachers, see what's going on in our buildings, bring your kiddos' supplies and put them in their desks or in their locker. Test those lockers out, because we know that can be something that kids are a little anxious about. I can't get my locker open, and on that first day, if they can't get their locker open, that's something that just is a little moment of angst for them. So come on in and for open house 4 to 6 p.m. on Wednesday at all of our buildings. That's pretty much what I have for that. And then we do have human resources. We are done with hiring. So even though we had a few late resignations, Lisa in particular with Pupil Services was, yes, she just huge sigh of relief. But we are really excited about the staff we have hired in our Pupil Services Department in particular, but throughout our hiring this year. We are very excited about the energy our new staff is bringing to the district. And so for my human resources, once again, just really excited about the 2019-20 school year, and we can't wait to get started. And that's my superintendent's report.
Awesome.
Did I forget anything?
It's 34 slides.
Oh,
Might be up to 60 by morning, just because I can.
I'll edit it while she's not watching.
I want to say thanks to our handful of middle school staff here who have stepped up to be advisors for co-curriculars. Some of those positions have come because of people moving buildings and it wasn't a good fit. I'm assuming, I know it's very difficult for staff who are teaching in the middle school to be a coach at the high school and vice versa. And I want to say thanks to our staff who step up to take those spots. And there's a lot going on. And to commit to that, as well as some of the professional development that's on the radar for the year. You know, I don't want that to go unrecognized. So thank you to them, and of course to all of our staff who fill those roles. All right, any other questions about the superintendent's report? Okay, moving on to public conversation, recognitions, and correspondence. We didn't have anybody sign in this evening, but Tuesday's the first day of school. So, of course, thank you to our staff, our administrators, our coaches, who directly serve our kids. But I also want to say thank you to Lamers and all of our bus drivers, our crossing guards, the city, because they employ and coordinate the crossing guards, our 4K sites, our partner sites in our daycares in the community that serve some of our students. But thank you, looking ahead to this year for the work that they do in whatever capacity to take care of our kids. It is much appreciated. So the flashing lights will be on Tuesday morning. Slow down in those crossings, crosswalks and school zones, and start setting the alarm now so we get there on time. Okay, moving on to board action. Consider the E3 life skills monitoring reports. This was presented to us last meeting. This was our first formal report on life skills since the new interpretations and indicators were approved. So I will entertain a motion. I'll entertain a table to the action, I guess.
I so move to approve E3 life skills, making reasonable progress with noted exceptions.
Second.
I had to pull it up, sorry.
Motion by Julia, second by Mike, to approve E3 life skills as reasonable progress with noted exceptions. Any discussion? And the comments are on both of those E3 and E4 reports. So discussion would involve anything on those as well. Okay, hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, moving on to E4, community involvement. This does have a revision. The indicators have been updated for E3. Hold on, I'm loading. Or for E4 in those areas where we had the middle school had bundled together grades 3 through 8, but Lisa went back and disaggregated.
Love that word this week.
The data so that we have CIS and CMS separated. So it follows the pattern of our behavior matrices, not matrices.
Good job.
I was a math minor. But the other reports as well where CIS and CMS are separated. So that's the only revision to what we saw last time. Okay, that was a lot of words to basically say your document is revised. So I'll entertain a motion.
I so move we approve E4 with the changes with the disaggregated data as proposed, as making reasonable progress. How was that?
She does like that word, I'll second it.
Motion by Julia, second by Bill, to accept E4 as reasonable progress. Any further discussion? All right, hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, board comments about E4, 5, and 6 were sent in your email before the meeting. I apologize that you don't have a paper copy there. I wasn't clear with Tammy this morning. We weren't talking on the same page, and I wasn't in my house. I was in the barn when I was talking to her. So those weren't uploaded. I was actually using the picnic table outside. I was at the barn, okay? Anyway, so they're there. So we'll talk about E4. I'll entertain a motion.
I so move we approve the comments to EL4 treatment of staff, monitoring report.
Second.
You want to do the monitoring report at the same time too?
Sure, let's do the whole monitoring report and the comments. I like it.
That'd be great.
Do you still second that?
Sure.
Do you want that in compliance, not in compliance, or noted exceptions?
Definitely in compliance.
You're done making motions tonight. I'm sorry. Motion by Julie to accept EL4 with the comments as in compliance. Is there a second? Oh, Mike has a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Same gig going on with EL5. Comments are there in your email. Take a motion, preferably for comments and the report. It is an EL, so we're looking for compliance, non-compliance, or noted exceptions. We get technical, we can table it, we can postpone it, we can do lots of things with it, but those would be the. Consolidate what? You can't do that with ELs and Ns. I'll negotiate something with a format on BSRs and GPs, because that's our own work. Nice try. You want to take that motion?
Sure, I move we approve. No, we accept with.
Compliance, non-compliance, noted exceptions.
With the added board comments.
Second.
I have a motion by Bill, a second by Keith, to accept EL5 as in compliance. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Now I'm confused because I'm opening the wrong reports. Way to go, Hajewski. Okay, it's fine. EL6. I'll entertain a motion. Again, comments were emailed to you. No changes since it was presented last meeting.
I move that EL6 be accepted as in compliance and along with board comments.
Do I get to second stuff?
Well, technically, I can't say you can't make a motion, so sure.
I second that.
Motion by Keith, a second by Julie to accept EL6 as in compliance. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, I'm gonna move on to something else. I also need bullet points that are not printed in yellow. Consider board development, Aspen Group Wisdom Sharing opportunity. And again, this would be to authorize Keith as well as Annette if she is available and incur that cost. So I'll entertain a motion.
I so move that we accept the board development Aspen Group Wisdom Sharing, sending Keith and Annette October 3rd and 5th.
I'll second Mike's motion.
Motion by Mike, a second by Kelly to accept the expenses for Aspen Group Wisdom Sharing. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, so you two need to get with her by Friday to coordinate at a minimum your hotel reservation. Because rates change on Tuesday. They lose the group rate.
Conference itself.
The conference itself, yes. Yeah, I think there's an early bird registration as well. So let's make sure we get at least that far by Friday, and then we can handle the rest. So, okay, moving on. Consider the high school co-curricular handbook revisions and proposed document. And again, what's in your document is simply the revisions to what was presented last time. We didn't upload the entire document, so. I'll entertain a motion. And the room is silent.
I move that the high school co-curricular handbook revisions process be accepted as presented.
Motion by Keith, second by Mike, to accept the student co-curricular handbook. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And middle school co-curricular handbook, that one did not have any changes. That was presented last meeting, so I'll entertain a motion. I can't make the motion. You've been banned. Serious. We don't call it timeout anymore. I think it's take a break, but that's probably outdated language too.
I move that the middle school co-curricular handbook for 2019-20 be accepted as presented.
Second.
Motion by Keith, a second by Bill, to accept the middle school co-curricular handbook. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right. Superintendent's consent agenda.
My turn.
Okay.
I move we approve the whole thing.
I have a motion by Bill,
Second.
second by Mike, though I gotta wonder if Kelly beat you to the punch.
No.
He tried,
He tried, he didn't make it.
but he didn't have his mic on. So, a motion by Bill, second by Mike, to accept the superintendent's consent agenda as presented. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. There's the last page of my agenda. Board consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion.
I move we approve the consent agenda of the board.
I'll second that.
Motion by Bill, second by Julie, to accept the board's consent agenda. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, at this point, we'll take a 2.5-minute recess so the admin team can go about their thing. Thank you for your work, and we'll do our calendar planning quickly. So, thanks, everybody.